Hello and welcome. Before we talk about English, before we talk about speaking, I want you to notice something very simple. Right now, as you are listening to these words, you are not translating every sound. You are not analyzing grammar. You are not building sentences. You are simply understanding. That moment, that quiet, effortless understanding, is where fluent English begins. Most people believe that speaking English is hard because they don't know enough words or because their grammar isn't perfect. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is this. When most learners speak English, they are not thinking in English. They are thinking in their native language and translating under pressure. And translation is heavy. It slows your thoughts. It breaks your confidence. It creates fear before the words even arrive. This is why you may understand English very well, but feel blocked when you try to speak. Your mind is doing too much work. But fluent speakers are different. They don't translate thoughts into English. They think through English. English is not something they use. It is something they stand inside. And this video is not about forcing you to speak more, memorize more, or push yourself harder. It is about changing where your thinking happens. Because the moment English becomes the place where your thoughts appear, speaking stops feeling like a performance. It becomes a continuation of thinking. In this journey, you will not be asked to sound perfect. You will not be asked to speak fast. You will not be asked to impress anyone. Instead, you will learn how to let English enter your thinking space quietly, naturally, and consistently. You will learn how to stay in English even when words are missing, even when pressure appears, even when your confidence feels small. And step by step, you will begin to notice something powerful. You are no longer asking, "How do I say this in English?" You are simply thinking, and English is already there. That is the shift. That is the skill. And that is what this video will guide you through. 8 steps. 8 mental adjustments. Not to make English louder, but to make it closer. So take a slow breath. You don't need to rush. You don't need to be ready. Just be open to the idea that English is not something you chase. It is something you allow to grow inside your thoughts. And when you are ready, we will begin with the first step, the step that breaks the habit that keeps most learners trapped forever. Step 1. Break the translation habit at the root. The first and most important step to thinking in English while speaking is not learning something new. It is unlearning something old. For most English learners, translation feels natural. It feels safe. It feels necessary. You hear English. You turn it into your native language. You understand. Then, when it's time to speak, you reverse the process. You think in your native language. You translate into English. You speak. This habit feels logical, but it is the very thing that keeps you stuck. Because translation is not thinking. Translation is conversion. And conversion is slow. Every time you translate, your brain must do 3 things at once: understand meaning, change structure, and search for words. That is too much pressure for real conversation. So the goal of step 1 is not to stop translating immediately. That would be impossible. The goal is to break translation at the root by changing how your brain handles meaning. Here is the key idea. Understanding does not require translation. You already know this. When you hear very simple English like, "Thank you," "Come here," "Take your time," you don't translate. You understand directly. That means your brain already knows how to process English without your native language. Step 1 is about expanding that space. Begin by choosing English that is slightly below your level. Not challenging, not impressive, comfortable. When you listen or read, do not ask, "What does this mean in my language?" Ask instead, What is happening here? Let images appear. Let feelings appear. Let understanding arrive without words in between. At first, your mind will try to translate anyway. That's fine. Do not fight it. Simply notice it. Awareness weakens habits. Every time you notice translation happening, you are creating distance from it. And distance creates choice. Another important practice. When you speak, start with thoughts that are already clear. Not complex ideas. Not opinions that need precision. Simple truths. I'm tired. I don't like this. I need more time. These thoughts do not need translation. They already exist as meaning. Let English attach to the meaning, not the other way around. This step may feel slow. That's normal. You are not trying to be fluent yet. You are changing how your mind enters English. And once English stops being filtered through your native language, thinking becomes lighter, faster, more natural. This is the foundation. Without it, every other step collapses. With it, English has space to grow inside your mind. Step 2. Let meaning lead, not words. After breaking the habit of constant translation, the next step is learning what should come first when you speak English. And the answer is simple. Meaning must come before words. Most learners do the opposite. They search for vocabulary. They worry about grammar. They try to build a correct sentence. And only after that, they think about what they want to say. This is backward. Fluent speakers do not think in sentences. They think in intentions. They know what they want to express before any words appear. That intention can be a feeling, an opinion, a reaction, or a purpose. Words are just tools used to carry that meaning. So step 2 is about training your mind to hold meaning without language, even if only for a moment. Here is how to practice. Before you speak, pause for half a second and ask yourself silently, what is happening right now? How do I feel about it? What do I want the other person to understand? Do not answer in words. Answer in awareness. For example, you are late. You feel stressed. You want the other person to understand that you didn't mean to cause trouble. That meaning already exists without a single English word. Now, when you speak, English has a clear direction. Even a simple sentence works. I'm sorry. I was late. Not perfect, but true. And truth is easier to express than correctness. Another powerful exercise. Describe situations in your mind without language. Imagine a moment. You are tired after work. You don't want to go out. You prefer rest. Hold that meaning clearly. Then allow English to appear. You may say, I'm tired. I want to rest. Short, simple, effective. This trains your brain to connect English directly to experience, not to translation. At first, your mind may feel empty. You may think, I don't know what to say. That emptiness is not failure. It is space. And space is where new thinking forms. Do not rush to fill it with complex words. Let meaning settle first. Over time, something important happens. Your brain learns that English does not need to be planned. It only needs a direction. And when meaning leads, words follow faster, more naturally, with less fear. This step changes your relationship with speaking. You stop performing language. You start expressing life. And when English becomes a way to express what you already feel and know, thinking in English stops being an effort. It becomes a habit. Step 3. Think in chunks, not complete sentences. One of the biggest misunderstandings about speaking English is the idea that you must think in full, correct sentences. This belief creates pressure before you even speak. You try to plan the beginning, then the grammar, then the ending. And while you are planning, The moment passes. Fluent speakers do not think this way. They don't build sentences in their heads. They think in chunks. Chunks are short groups of words that carry meaning on their own. They are flexible. They are reusable. And most importantly, they appear quickly. For example, instead of planning a sentence like, "I would like to explain my opinion about this situation," a fluent speaker thinks in chunks such as, "I think," "in my opinion," "the reason is," "what I mean is." Each chunk is a doorway. Once you step through one doorway, the next one becomes clearer. So step 3 is this. Train your mind to move from chunk to chunk, not from sentence to sentence. This changes how you think while speaking. You no longer ask, "How do I finish this sentence correctly?" You ask, "What comes next?" That single question keeps you moving forward. Here is a simple practice. Choose a topic. Do not plan what you will say. Start with one chunk, "I think," or "the thing is." Then pause. Not to panic, but to let the next chunk appear. "The reason is," "for me," "that's why." This pause is not a mistake. It is thinking in real time. Fluent speakers pause often. They just don't leave the language. Another key benefit of chunks is that they reduce translation. Chunks are learned as units. You don't translate them word by word. "I think," "it depends," "I'm not sure, but." These phrases become thoughts, not language. And when chunks become thoughts, you are thinking in English. At first, your speech may sound simple. That is not a weakness. Simple language is fast language. Fast language builds confidence. Confidence creates flow. Over time, as chunks become automatic, your sentences naturally grow longer. But you never plan them. They grow on their own. This is how natural speech works. You don't construct it. You allow it. And when you allow English to come in pieces instead of perfection, you stop feeling stuck. You stop feeling silent. You start moving. And movement is the heart of fluency. Step 4. Stay in English when the word is missing. There is a moment every English learner knows very well. You are speaking. The idea is clear in your mind. And then suddenly, the word is gone. Your thoughts stop moving. Your confidence drops. And without realizing it, your mind escapes back to your native language. This moment is not a vocabulary problem. It is a thinking habit problem. Because fluent speakers do not always know the right word either. The difference is simple. They stay in English even when the word is missing. So step 4 is about learning how to remain inside English instead of leaving it. When you don't know a word, your brain believes you must stop. But stopping breaks the flow of thought. And once the flow is broken, translation returns. So we replace stopping with movement. Here are 4 ways to keep moving in English. First, describe the idea. If you don't know the word, talk around it. For example, you don't know the word appointment. You can say, "It's a time when I meet someone to talk about work." Is it perfect? No. But it keeps your thinking alive. Second, use simpler words. Complex vocabulary is not required for fluent thinking. Clear ideas are. Instead of searching for one perfect word, use 3 easy ones. Simple English is strong English. Third, explain the function. What does this thing do? Why does it exist? Your brain already understands function without language. Let English catch up. Fourth, give an example. Examples keep you inside meaning. They prevent silence. Here is an important truth you must accept. Fluency is continuity, not accuracy. When your brain learns that it is allowed to continue without perfect words, it relaxes. And a relaxed brain thinks faster. Practice this intentionally. Choose a topic. Speak for 1 minute. Rule: you are not allowed to stop speaking. If you don't know a word, you must explain it using any English you have. At first, this feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is growth. Over time, something powerful happens. Your mind stops asking, "What is the right word?" It starts asking, "How can I express this idea?" And that question keeps you thinking in English. Because now, English is no longer a test. It is a problem-solving space. And when you solve problems inside a language, you think in that language. This step is critical. Because once you trust that you can stay in English even without perfect words, fear loses its power. And when fear disappears, thinking flows. Step 5. Rebuild your inner voice in English. Every thought you have has a voice. It may be quiet. It may be fast. But it is always there. That voice, the one you use to plan, reflect, and react, is your inner voice. And here is a simple truth. You cannot think in English while speaking if your inner voice does not accept English. For most learners, the inner voice only speaks the native language. English exists outside, in books, lessons, and conversations. But thinking happens inside. So step 5 is about moving English from the outside to the inside. Not forcefully, not aggressively, gently. You do not train your inner voice by arguing with it. You train it by giving it permission. Start with the smallest thoughts of the day. Not ideas, not opinions. Basic awareness. When you wake up, instead of thinking in your native language, invite English in. I'm awake. I'm still tired. Today feels busy. These are not sentences to practice. They are thoughts to experience. Do not correct them. Do not improve them. Let them be simple. Your inner voice must feel safe. Because if English feels heavy, your mind will avoid it. Here is an important rule. Broken English in your head is better than perfect silence. Silence keeps English outside. Imperfect thoughts invite it in. Another powerful practice is mental narration. As you move through your day, describe actions quietly in English. I'm walking. I'm waiting. I need to focus. You are not studying. You are living in English, just a little. At first, your inner voice may switch back quickly. That's normal. Do not fight it. Just return to English when you notice. This gentle return builds habit without resistance. Over time, something changes. English stops feeling like a foreign guest. It becomes familiar, present. And once English is present in your thoughts, speaking becomes easier. Because you are no longer switching languages when you speak. You are continuing a thought that already exists. This is why inner voice training is so powerful. It connects thinking and speaking into one flow. You don't prepare sentences. You express awareness. And awareness is fast. Remember this. You don't need your inner voice to speak English all day. You just need it to speak English a little more often than yesterday. That small shift, repeated daily, changes how your brain works. Quietly, naturally, from the inside. Step 6. Stay in English under pressure by simplifying thought. There is a big difference between practicing English and using English in real life. In practice, you have time. You feel safe. You can think. In real conversations, pressure appears. Someone is waiting. Silence feels heavy. Your mind wants to respond fast. And, under pressure, your brain does one thing very well. It chooses safety. That is why many learners say, "I can think in English, but not when I'm speaking to real people." This is not a failure. It is biology. Under pressure, the brain simplifies. So step 6 is not about forcing speed. It is about working with simplification, not against it. To think in English under pressure, you must simplify your thoughts on purpose. Most learners do the opposite. They try to sound smart. They try to be accurate. They try to be impressive. And that makes thinking slower. Fluent speakers do not try to impress. They try to respond. They reduce ideas to their core. Instead of thinking, I would like to explain my perspective in detail. They think, I want to explain my idea. Clear, simple, fast. This is the key. Simple thoughts arrive faster than complex ones. So train your brain to choose simple meaning first. Here is a powerful exercise. Take a normal topic. For example, work, study, plans, feelings. Now limit yourself. Rule: you may only use short sentences. 5 words or fewer. I feel tired. I need more time. I don't agree. I'm not sure. This practice removes pressure. Your brain learns, I don't need complexity to stay in English. Another important shift. Stop planning full responses. Under pressure, planning kills flow. Instead, react to one idea at a time. Listen. Understand the core meaning. Respond to just that. You don't need to finish the whole thought. Fluent speakers often discover what they want to say while they are speaking. They don't know the ending when they start. And that is okay. This mindset is crucial. Speaking is not proof of thinking. Speaking is part of thinking. When you allow yourself to speak simply, thinking continues in English. When you hesitate waiting for perfection, thinking stops. Over time, your brain learns something important. English is safe even when it is simple. And once English feels safe under pressure, your mind stays inside it. Not because you force it, but because it works. This is how thinking in English survives real life. Step 7. Use listening to train how you think in English. Most people believe listening is only about understanding words. You hear a sentence. You decode it. You move on. But for fluent speakers, listening does something much deeper. Listening shapes how they think. So step 7 is about changing the purpose of listening. You are not listening to collect information. You are listening to absorb thinking patterns. Every language has a rhythm of thought. Not just how sentences sound, but how ideas move. When you listen to English regularly, your brain begins to notice how ideas begin, how speakers continue, how they hesitate, how they clarify, how they finish thoughts. These are not grammar rules. They are thinking habits. And the more your brain hears them, the more naturally it copies them. But this only works if you listen the right way. Here is the shift you must make. Stop listening for every word. Start listening for direction. Ask yourself while listening, what is the speaker doing right now? Are they explaining? Reacting? Clarifying? Giving an example? You don't need full understanding to answer this. And answering it keeps your brain thinking in English. Another powerful technique is pause and continue. Listen to a short sentence. Pause the audio. Do not repeat the sentence. Instead, ask yourself, how would this thought continue? Say your answer in simple English. It doesn't need to match the speaker. It just needs to stay in English. This turns listening into thinking practice. Over time, your brain starts predicting what might come next. And prediction is a sign of thinking. Because translation reacts. Thinking anticipates. Here is an important rule. Allow incomplete understanding. If you try to understand everything, your brain goes back to translation. But if you allow 70% understanding, your mind stays in English. And staying matters more than accuracy. Daily listening matters even if you don't speak afterward. Because listening feeds your inner voice. The phrases you hear become familiar. The structures you hear become available. And when you speak, you are not creating English from zero. You are continuing patterns your brain already knows. This is why listening is not passive. It is preparation. Quiet preparation. And when preparation is consistent, thinking changes. English stops feeling foreign. It starts feeling expected. And what feels expected appears naturally in thought. Step 8. Stop monitoring yourself and let English happen. At this stage of the journey, many learners ask the same question. I know the steps. I practice them. So why do I still feel tense when I speak? The answer is subtle, but important. Because even when you think in English, one habit can still pull you out of it. That habit is self-monitoring. Watching yourself while you speak. Checking your grammar. Judging your words. Measuring your performance. This habit feels responsible. But it is the final barrier to natural thinking. Fluent speakers do not monitor themselves while speaking. They monitor the listener. They care about connection, not correctness. So step 8 is this. Stop observing your English and start living inside it. When you monitor yourself, your attention splits. One part of your mind speaks. The other part judges. And thinking cannot flow when it is being watched. So you must make a choice. Not between good English and bad English, but between control and flow. Flow requires trust. Trust that your brain knows more than you think. Trust that mistakes will not destroy meaning. Trust that pauses do not equal failure. Here is a powerful practice. Speak with a single intention. Before you talk, choose one simple goal. Not speak correctly. Not sound fluent. Choose be clear. Be honest. Be understood. Hold that intention. Then speak. When your attention stays on intention, your thinking stays in English. Another important shift. Accept silence as part of thinking. When you pause, do not escape to your native language. Stay. Let the next thought arrive in English. That pause is not empty. It is active. It is English forming. Over time, these pauses become shorter. Not because you force speed, but because your brain feels safe. And safety creates fluency. Here is the final truth of this journey. Thinking in English is not something you achieve. It is something you stop interrupting. When you stop translating, stop forcing, stop correcting, and stop judging, English has room to exist. Naturally. Quietly. Consistently. One day, you will notice something small but powerful. You respond in English without preparing, without translating, without fear. And in that moment, you won't feel proud. You'll feel normal. That is when you know. English is no longer something you use. It is something your mind recognizes as its own. Before we say goodbye, I want you to reflect quietly on what you have just experienced. Not the techniques, not the steps, but the feeling. A feeling of calm. A feeling of possibility. A feeling that thinking in English is no longer something far away. Because now you understand something important. Fluency is not built by force. It is built by familiarity. By allowing English to exist in your thoughts a little more each day. You don't need to remember every step perfectly. You don't need to practice everything at once. All you need is consistency with kindness. When you notice yourself translating, you are learning. When you simplify your thoughts, you are learning. When you stay in English, even without the perfect word, you are learning. Progress is happening even when it feels quiet. And that is the kind of progress that lasts. Remember this. You don't need to think in English all the time to be fluent. You only need to think in English often enough that it starts to feel familiar. One thought, one reaction, one small moment at a time. This is how English becomes natural. Not by sounding perfect, but by becoming present. And if today's video helped you feel calmer about speaking English, more confident about your thinking, or more hopeful about your journey, I invite you to stay with this channel. Consider subscribing so you don't miss future videos designed to help you learn English in a slower, deeper, and more human way. And turn on the notification bell so new lessons reach you right when you need them. This channel is not about pressure. It's not about rushing. It's about building real fluency from the inside out. Thank you for giving this time to yourself. Thank you for trusting the process. And most importantly, thank you for believing that you are capable of thinking in English and speaking with clarity and confidence. Take a deep breath. Carry this calm with you. And I'll see you in the next video.